The client-agency relationship is often a roller coaster, which is, I think, quite the understatement. So our next speaker here has dug into this before with different fields of study to answer on how to make things a little bit more stable. Bruno Gralpois is the co-founder of Agency Mania and is the best-selling author of the book by the same name. An award-winning business leader, unlike myself, he's considered a top industry expert and a thought leader on client-agency relations. He was previously head of global marketing at Visa, where he was responsible for agency partnerships for driving marketing excellence around the world. He's held senior leadership positions at Sprint, Razorfish, and Microsoft, where he received the prestigious Marketing Excellence Award from Steve Ballmer himself. One last tidbit. He's a human rights advocate and an advisor to Academy Award-winning actress Emma Thompson. Ladies and gentlemen, Bruno Gralpois.
Thank you. Perfect. Bonjour. Comment ça va? Good afternoon. It's great to be here. So how's everyone doing? Collabosphere 2015, right? Woo! Very exciting. My name is, thank you. I'll need that. My name is Bruno Gralpois, and I'm speaking about something that's very close to my heart. I spent the majority of my career helping some of the most prestigious brands in the world building remarkable relationship with their agencies. Companies like Microsoft, where I spent about 10 years, Visa, and other ones like you heard earlier. So I'm very, very, very passionate about this topic. And based on that experience, I wrote a book you heard called Agency Mania that talk a lot about what I'm going to talk about today, which is how do you go about building incredibly successful relationships with your agencies and with your clients, which is going to be the bulk of our conversation today. Now, we know it's not easy, and we're going to talk about this in a second. So there's a French expression that says that bad news is like bad wine. It never ages very well. So you got to give it up front. So here it is. 25% of your existing client agency relationships today won't make it to next year, period, right? So it's a sad number. It's a very true number. Now, every relationship needs work, right? And we often wonder why some relationships thrive while others fail miserably. How many of you think that relationships need work? If you do, say hi. All right, that's good. I agree. So what gets in the way of great relationships, especially in the marketing field? Let me share you a couple of data points with you. The first thing is the world of marketing as we know it is in constant change, and it's changing at a very rapid pace. It's a big contributing factor. Now, if you're in marketing today, most of us probably need a PhD these days. If you look at the entire ecosystem of marketing tactics and disciplines that you need to be mastering, it's a very, very complex ecosystem. Another data point, which is interesting, when you look at the State of the Union, this is based on a study that was done by the Association of National Advertisers. They realized that, client agency relationships are in a mixed bag today. Both client and agencies realize those relationships are very critical. But how you get to manage those relationships gets to be very, very challenging. So I'm going to talk about some trends in 2015 and above. But before I go into the trend, you got to ask the question, I certainly ask the question when I'm presenting or I hear other people speaking, is how good really are we at predicting the future? So let me show you how good we are. Here are a couple of things that we didn't predict. Number one, Omnicom Publicis, the merger, right? Everybody thought that Le Mariage was going to happen between John Rand and, what's his name? Drawing a blank. Maurice Levy, there we go. John Rand and Maurice Levy. And the marriage never took place, right? It was called Le Divorce. Media reviews. Who expected so many media reviews? There's over $25 billion of reviews going on right now in the media space, in-house agencies. They're showing up everywhere, at every client organization we work with. And our clients range from very broad companies in the telco business, in the automobile business, in the banking, financial services. They all are building in-house agencies. Retainer relationships is another one. We thought those were going to be secure, and more of the clients are moving to project-based relationships. Another one we didn't see coming, media rebates. Have you seen that in the trade press? Incredible. What he highlighted is the lack of transparency and trust between clients and media agencies, and it was all over the news for a while. Programmatic buying. Look how much money is actually shifting to programmatic buying. It's a very, very large amount of money is now going into this kind of black hole. Nobody anticipated that. And fees and margin. We all thought, wow, the recession is over, so fees and margin going to relax, the agency business is going to boom again. And no, clients have just maintained the level of pressure and tension in that space. So we didn't anticipate any of that. Now, we did get some things right, okay? So here's some things we got right. Specialization. We thought agency would specialize as more and more, and marketing become more diverse and specialized, and effectively they did. We saw more and more mergers and acquisition. 32% increase year over year in acquisitions, in M&As year over year. That's a $32 billion mergers and acquisition in the advertising space alone. So a lot of consolidation. A lot of clients are bringing a lot more agencies into their fold. They want a larger agency roster. They want to be able to cherry pick the kind of agencies they work with. Digital turf battle. Every agency is going in the digital space. You know what? It's about survival. Talent. We're going to talk about this. Shortage of talent is a big thing that we anticipated. And then relationship tenure. We know that they're going shorter and shorter and shorter, right? That's a big issue. And obviously, everything is becoming digital. Everywhere, from the way we store data to the way we communicate, the way we, and certainly PGI is at the forefront of that. But everything is incredibly digital now across the board. And we anticipate that will happen. So there are a couple of trends that I want to share with you that hopefully should keep you at night. The first one is spending is flat. Now, if you look at the numbers, this is a data point from the 200 largest advertisers in the United States. And the number is actually 2.2%. So are clients spending less money? Well, they're spending a little bit more. But what's interesting is they're not spending the same way. They are cutting waste wherever they can. If you've looked at the recent P&G announcement, one of the largest advertisers in the world, they are looking to reduce $500 million and cutting $500 million in production and agency fees every year, and reinvest that money into working media. $500 million a year. And what they're doing, they're cutting some agency relationship, they're consolidating where they can. So clients are spending smarter. Another one, technology is changing the way we do marketing, and we should know, we are at this event today. But what's interesting is, can we adapt quickly enough? Here's a view that you might find interesting. This is a number of companies in the marketing services technology space in 2014. 947 companies. So if you're a client and you're looking at this space, you're like, this is the range of capabilities in 32 unique categories of services. Content management, social media tracking, social media optimization, social media listening, you name it, across the board. Look what happened. In 1 year, it doubled. There's twice as many options for client to pick from. How do you make sense of this as a client? Now, here's another issue. The talent gap is widening. We talk about the shortage of talent. Yet, if you look at this data, this is a study that was done from a CMO study about where we see the biggest gaps today in talent. And I'll tell you, there's 3 of them. Digital and social media is one. Data mining and analytics is actually number 1. And consumer engagement is number 2. So most companies struggle to staff with the right type of talent to meet these challenges. So what happens? Madison Avenue has to reinvent itself. And by the way, this is not my child, just as a... Madison Avenue has to reinvent itself. And the way they do it is 4 data points I want to share with you about Madison Avenue. The first one is 5.4%. This is the US agency revenue increase year over year. It's a $43 billion business. It's a 5.4% increase in revenue. The second data point that's very interesting to show that Madison Avenue is still relatively healthy is that the amount of spend or revenue generated in Madison Avenue is about 40% in digital now. So it's grown quite significantly over the years. And we see a lot of deals. This is a number of deals that have been done by the four biggest agency firms, WPP, Omnicom, IPG, and Publicis. 100 deals, that's a lot of activity again in mergers and acquisitions. And the last one is interesting. This is out of the world's 5 largest digital network, only one is owned by an agency company. And number 5, it's Warnerman. The other ones are IBM, Interactive Experience, Deloitte, Accenture, and Epsilon. Very interesting to see a lot of new guys from the big 6 coming into the agency world in the digital space. So Madison Avenue is really transforming itself rapidly. Now, if you're a client and you need to look for an agency partner, here's what it looks like. It's like, how do you find the agency partner you need? How do you go about doing it, right? Very, very, very confusing. So to make a point, if you look at the agencies, you would think, well, if I can find an agency, if I find their name, I'll be able to make sense of it, right? So you have agencies like 72 and Sunny. You have agencies like Mother or Spaceship. They don't tell you anything about what they do, right? It's the name don't even help you, right? Everybody's having fun, but nobody can make sense of it. To the point where this company in Canada, agency, had fun with it. They say, hey, we can't make sense of agency names either. So out of a game, you can go to their website. They'll say, see how good you are, whether or not this is an agency or a porn movie. So here you go. Here's Flashpoint, okay? Think Pink, Rock Candy, Attic Toys, Peekaboo, and you name it. So you can go on the line and just play the game and see how good you are. But most clients wouldn't be able to make points. So another element that probably adds another layer of complexity for clients is this concept of identity crisis, right? What's happening is you're seeing creative agencies starting to do media work. You see digital agencies starting to do TV. You see digital firms getting into the PR space. You see obviously a lot of client moving work in-house. And you see even PR firms going into full integrated services. And you see a lot of digital shops even opening their own production studio. So as a client, you look at this world and it's like, wow, is that land grabbing? Like everybody's changing and everybody's doing a little bit of everything. So you can imagine how confusing and challenging it is for clients. So the question I want to ask you is, are we really prepared, right, to manage this relationship more efficiently? And how do we go about doing that? So I'm going to walk you through six ways, critical ways, to build agency relationship that thrive. The first one is I call fusion. Fusion is really, it's really another name for innovation. And it's really where innovation, when you start combining technology and creativity. So I did this presentation at the National Advertiser event, and I asked them, how effective are you at driving the agenda of innovation with your agencies? What was interesting is most of them don't feel very effective at it, right? We're not getting the level of innovation. The clients don't feel they're getting the level of innovation they need from their agency ecosystem. Now, innovation should be in everything we do. If you look at the way some agencies are approaching it, I'm going to use the example of RGA, for example, which is a very well-known digital firm. RGA, to drive innovation, has actually taken equity in 70-plus companies that are startups and are investing in building a new form of kind of digital marketing to the equation. If you look at their capabilities on the right side, they don't look like a creative agency or digital agency as we knew it. With data visualization, prototype studio, they are really getting into a different ballgame altogether. And we see a lot of clients creating these agency innovation forums where they bring all their agencies to try to come up with the next big idea that's going to really transform their business. So innovation is the game now. Now, there is a big event every year, you probably know, called the Lions at Cannes, right? So it takes place in the beautiful city of Cannes, France. And when you think about Cannes or the Lions, you may be thinking about something else. Well, this Lions Festival is actually the largest international advertising festival in the world. So anybody who's who in advertising will end up being there. You may have seen a lot of things in trade press. Now, for the past 2 years, the Lions, the organization, has created this innovation award. 2 years. This year alone, there were 845 entries by agencies in the world of innovation, in the category of innovation. So that tells you how incredibly dynamic is the space of merging data, technology, and creativity. Here's a great example. Actually, it's an example that was one of the award winners by Saatchi & Saatchi, where they were trying to solve for a problem around trying to help children and sensitize parents about helping them find out whether their children had eyesight problems at a young age. But rather than trying to solve it with advertising, putting like ads in newspaper, trying to get people to pay attention to this problem and take their children to see an ophthalmo, what they've done is they actually solve it by a very creative, innovative way. They created a book called Penny the Parrot, and it's a book that it's a bedtime book that you can take your children through. As you read the story, if the children are unable to read the elements of the book, it's a way for the parent to diagnose themselves whether their children may have eyesight problems. Just a wonderful example of how the world of marketing is changing. This is pure innovation. This is solving a problem of advertising problem without advertising. And this book was made free to basically parents and distributed very broadly. Great example of innovation, and I'm glad to see them win. Here's a great quote from, you probably know this gentleman, David Duorga. His agency is very well known. But I love what he said here because he said there's friction between the traditional world of advertising, Madison Avenue, and data. And we should not fear data and science as agencies. We should embrace it, right? We're not scared of it. I think he said beautifully. So when I talk to clients about innovation, they ask me, what should we do? So here's the things I usually share with them. I say, meet with your agency and let's articulate your 3-year strategic plan. What does innovation look like as you partner with your agencies? Integrate innovation as part of your QBR, your quarterly business reviews. So it's part of the agenda, it's part of the conversation. Prepare for frequent change. It's coming, it's inevitable. You know how much of marketing budget is allocated to innovation today? 9.4% across advertisers, 9.4%, almost 10%. You heard earlier from Forrester the example where they shared the 70, 10, 20, 10, right? 70 is now, 20 is new, and next is 10, right? So 10% is roughly, 9.4% is how much is being spent in pure innovation. Track spend innovation. I think we see a lot of clients starting to allocate more and more dollars to more innovative thinking. Set up innovation guidelines. What is innovation in the first place? And how does it manifest itself? And then start experimenting with forums. And we see a lot more clients building agency forums where all their agencies are coming and they're sharing their ideas, some ways of innovating, and they pick the best idea and they fund those ideas. Very, very popular and very, very successful. Second one, flexibility. So what do I mean by flexibility, right? Flexibility is an important ingredient of the client-agency relationship of the future, right? And it feels a little bit like speed dating, right? And now you'll see that in many, many ways. So how do you enable agility for clients without having disruption? So we probably all have our iWatch. I got mine, so this is mine, my Apple Watch. I'm very, very excited. So anyway, I'm going to share with you an example of what. So imagine clients walking with their iWatch, and this would be basically the client-agency relationship in the Apple Watch years, right? You basically have this great app, and suddenly this new app allows you to keep or file your agency right here on your watch. Is that amazing? And you're like, you know, it's not working out after all, and boom. Say, congratulations, you have Iris saying, we successfully terminated your 6-week relationship, because remember, relationships are shorter and shorter, right? So fiction or reality? Fiction, right? Thankfully. But if you look at example like Lyft, how many of you know Lyft? Yeah? All right. Lyft, they receive a bit of PR coverage when they try to look for their new agency of record. And the way they did that is they did by tweeting. Basically, entries had to be submitted within 6 days. So now, just so for the record, this breaks every rule that the 4A's, Association of American Advertising Agencies, and the ANA, Association of National Advertisers, have set forward for how you go about searching an agency partner. But that's more and more reality as companies are trying to move very fast to find the right agency partner. So you have to deal with flexibility and agility at the same time. Here's a great quote from one of our clients, Mondelez International. Dana is the SVP of Marketing Strategies, and she said it was last year in the Wall Street Journal. She had this quote that I think made a lot of noise, because it's saying, hey, you know what? The agency of record model is dying. You know, it's not working no more. We got to open up our model and do things a little bit differently. And if you look at the data, and we track it at Agency Mania Solutions, we track it on an ongoing basis. If you look at we look at the length of the relationship when we see agency changes. And look at that, Land Rover, 20-year relationship, Procter & Gamble, 20, Mercedes-Benz, 16, United States Navy, 15 years, General Mills, 14 years. Those were long-term relationships that are coming to an end. The average tenure now is, guess what? It's about 2 years. You know why it's 2 years? Because that's how long CMO stays in the role. Every 2 years, a revolving door, new CMOs come in, and you know what happens? An agency review takes place, and a new agency comes in board. That's the level of agility and flexibility we see. We've seen over 150 significant agency roster changes since January. January, that's amazing. That's a rapid acceleration. And we're talking like significant, large client relationships changing agencies. Media, I mentioned earlier, there have been 40 of them announced from top media spenders. 40 reviews, over $25 billion in review. It's huge. Never happened before. Media agencies, those relationships tend to last 7 years. You know, they are very long relationships, and they're all under review. So you can see the desire from clients to move faster. So when I ask the question to these advertisers, national advertisers, are you considering shifting the work? Yes. The large majority say, yeah, we're planning to go from kind of retained relationship to more project-based relationships. It's a shift that's undeniable. So when they ask me what to do about it, here's what I typically say. You have to educate your organization on the cost of transitioning and onboarding new vendors and new agencies. Most clients don't always do that. You have to set a review schedule for how often you want to reevaluate your agencies. You want to use performance data really to make informed decisions about whether or not you want to change your agencies. You want to leverage technology to streamline the RFP process. We're no longer into the years of trading Word document, Excel document, and doing things by email. And you also want to adapt online training to ramp up these resources very quickly, because you need to work on your business. And you also need to anticipate what the implications of moving to a project-based relationships, because you know what? The agencies won't necessarily be able to give you the absolutely best talent at all times. So clients have to understand the consequences of that. And that's a big part of what we do, is we educate them on the understanding the implications of going to this speed dating environment. Friction-free. So what is friction-free? What we mean here is that it's the importance of providing and receiving feedback in a client-agency relationship. That's an essential ingredient on how to drive actionable insight from your performance evaluations. So in chapter 5 of the book, I talk about these sweaty t-shirt theory. So I'll skip you the story. You have to read it. It's very fun. It's about an experiment that was done in Lausanne, Switzerland by a biologist. But the net takeaway from the story is the following. And you probably can relate to that. We are for whatever reason, and it's very instinctive, we're naturally attracted to those that are very different from who we are. Just the way it works. It's part of our DNA. We're wired that way. You'll see why when you read that section in the book. But what it means is that when we talk about relationships and business partnership, we tend to be attracted to, and we want to retain relationships that are very different from obviously who we are. And it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing to be, you don't want to be identical, but what you want to be is you want to be compatible. So you're looking for relationships that make you stronger because they complement and enhance, obviously, what you bring to the table. And that's kind of the key point away of this particular view. Now, we know that we have this talent shortage that we experience in Madison Avenue. And sometimes we think, well, if I get the best agency on my business, it'll take care of it. Well, we know it doesn't work that way. I may be getting team B, team C. It may not be the best agency team on my business. So clients have to pay very careful attention to whether or not the agency resources put on their business are working the way they're supposed to. And that's where the feedback loop becomes very critical. Now, we know relationships go through phases, right? And I call them the 6 R's of relationship, between romance, reality, reaction. We can all relate to that, right? Whether it's in our personal lives or it's in our business lives. We go through those phases. And each of these phases brings a unique set of challenges. And that's where you need to have some feedback. So that's why there's been a renewed focus and importance around the notion of feedback, receiving and giving feedback by most of the clients we work with, and certainly from the agencies. How do we know the partnership is working? How do we know we're performing well? How do we know we're getting the type of leadership we need? How do we know we're collaborating, which was a big word here, right? All day today and the next 2 days. How do we get the right level of collaboration? How do we know we get the right level of innovation? So those are very important dimensions that most clients will look at. So now the challenge is most of the questions that are being asked are not always very, very insightful. The frequency at which the questions are being asked is not often adequate. And that's feedback we're getting, right? From a lot of agencies and a lot of clients. The timeliness is not right. You know, you do a survey, you ask for feedback from your client agency relationship, and it takes 6 months until you get the results, and all those issues are long gone. You spend all your time on doing these survey, and then you're not spending as much time on really actioning the results. And then you rely on the score. Did I get a 3 or did I get a 5, or what's the score, right? Instead of really deep diving into what people are saying. And then we see also a lot of survey fatigue, right? We all get surveyed, right? You go on Delta Airline, and then boom, you'll get surveyed. How was your flight? How was your deal? How was Netflix? How was, survey fatigue? So that's an issue as well. And unstructured data, which is kind of comments, right? When you provide comments, what we refer as unstructured data, is very tough to mine. But that's where the value is when people tell you, here's what's not working for me. And you have to be able to get to it. So when I ask this question to the large national advertisers, what would you like to do better in the way you do performance evaluations? They say, we want the data that you capture, the feedback, to be more actionable, more insightful, right? They all feel the pain. And you probably do too if you're on the agency side. So here's what I typically recommend to them is seek compatible, not identical partners. Right? Compatibility is key, but you have to be looking for this level of tension a little bit. Invest in making those joint action plans. If you're doing any type of performance evaluation, it's got to be 360, right? The agency has to give feedback the same way your client has to give feedback. Make sure you work on the questions with your agency to make sure you ask the right questions. They're going to be insightful. Accelerate the speed at which you share results. Use data really for directional trending, but spend more of your time on, mining the data. And then do ongoing pulse checks so you know what's going on in the relationships. Virtualization, another very key element of successful client-agency relationships. And it's really about accountability and fostering that level of mutual accountability. Here's an interesting data point. There was a survey that came out recently. 21% is the number of people in the United States that are employees that feel undervalued, right? 21%. 87% are the people who are dissatisfied, basically, in the way they're currently engaged with their employer or their partner. So what it's telling us is that there's a massive problem here. But what's interesting, when you look at what motivates people, money, which is typically how we deal with people, employees, and relationships, business relationships, is one of the lowest on the list here. This is not what motivates people anymore. If you read a book from Dan Pink is a former speechwriter for Al Gore. He wrote a book called Drive. It's a great book, and in that, Dan Pink highlights 3 things that are the new motivators. He said we need to have a shared sense of purpose with employees and partners. We need to have some autonomy. We need to give some people some room to explore and innovate. And people want to develop mastery. They want to be really good at what they do. You need to give them ways to do that. Those are the 3 elements that are essential to motivate partners, to motivate employees. And I believe those to be true. I did another one, which Dan didn't put in his book, which I believe is very important. It's called recognition. Now, the power of thanks, saying thank you, is incredibly powerful, whether it's to your employees or not. This is a case that we did with one of our very large telco company, and we built a program with them that's called Kudos. And it allowed all the clients to go to this online environment and basically send a kudo to agency people they work with, and reversely, the agency folks could go to that place and send a kudo to the client that they work with, and they receive a PDF certificate with their name on it that they will be able to print and put on their billboards or somewhere, and that would basically recognize them for their contribution. Very important, and that drives satisfaction, and that drives motivation. Those kind of programs are a lot more powerful sometimes than just financial incentives. Now, don't get me wrong. Most of our clients we work with as performance-based compensation agreements, which means that I would say about 60% of them do. They have some aspect of the financial arrangement that is based on the actual performance of the agency. And that's a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. I actually differ with my friend from Forrester, I think, who actually had a paper on this saying that maybe it was oversold. I think there's still a lot of value in it. But there's a lot more tools at your disposal to really foster great partnership. So here's what I typically tell our clients when we talk about how to build a strong relationship with their agencies. Focus on what really matters. Motivate without a checkbook. Identify maybe joint learning programs where the clients can bring their agency partners and vice versa in their training programs. Set up an award recognition system so you can highlight people. And it could be just bringing people at an annual event and just on the stage, rewarding them for their performance. And define your priorities, areas, and expectations. A lot of clients fail to do that very well, so it's very hard for the agencies to know how to perform against that. And then recognize top talent, as I mentioned, at key events. And that's a great way of fostering this kind of accountability across the board. Fact-based. Here's another essential aspect of client-agency relationships. And what I mean by that, it's really about embracing data-driven and improved decision-making. Now, we all traveled here by plane, I assume, and you may ask yourself, which one of those two you'd rather flying on the way home, right? I think we all know the answer to that, right? We all want dashboards and data to help improve our decision. And because of that, we can suddenly start managing our agency talent and resources more efficiently. This is what at Agency Mania Solutions we call data-driven partnership management. We believe in this value chain where the value of the relationship can be managed more effectively if we have this holistic view of all the aspects of the relationship. So ask the question as well to those national advertisers, how important is it for you to have these centralized data and insight-driven approach to your client-agency relationships? And you can see, obviously, very important for most of them. Everybody wants to have their fingers on the data across the board. So what are the things you can do? And that's what I recommend to our clients. Build a data strategy, define taxonomy and process, prioritize quick wins, and publish views for senior leadership. So provide a lot of these dashboards for the key people, and then set internal benchmarks, and then you can set targets for your business. And then based on that, then you can course correct the relationship, which is very important. The last one out of the 6 key recommendations is speed. And how you accomplish speed, it has to be through streamlined processes and greater automation. Now, you can't really do that unless you stop and reflect on what needs to be done. So you need to do some careful planning here, to do that. I love this quote from Lincoln. But what he means is that if you look at the things that are getting in the way of better work and better speed, typically it's not having the right scope or the right brief in place. And that becomes an ongoing issue for most clients in relationship. They don't scope the work very well, and they don't brief their agency partners very well. And that gets in the way of great work very consistently. And so you need to go from what I call, gut feeling, which is kind of, here's kind of things we do, to obviously science, which is a kind of platform that, I know PGI has put in place and your clients can leverage. So here's what I suggest to a lot of clients, and we do a lot of that work, is implement scope of work development, approval process, capture data in a central database so you can share that data, automate a lot of these data feeds and reporting, establish benchmarks. And if you do have benchmarks, then you can improve the way you negotiate with your agency partners, because now you have data you can use. So those were the 6 ways I wanted to kind of leave you with that are very important to move the relationship. And here's 6 ways you can take action today, which are the one that tied to the presentation I did today. Those are very specific things that can make a big difference in the way you manage your relationship. Keep in mind, though, perspective is everything, right? If you sit on the client side, if you sit on the agency side, your perspective can be very, very different. Now, just for fun, I know there's going to be a lot of books made available to you, so courtesy of Central Desktop, which is great. So I encourage you to read the books. It won't solve all world anger, which is what Bill Gates is trying to solve. So, thanks to Photoshop, I kind of had some fun with it. You can see even Jeff Bezos, is probably reading the book, no doubt. And then obviously in politics, I can't help. But obviously, I'm sure Obama is going to benefit from reading the book. So I hope you all enjoy that too. The last thing I want to leave you is a great example of it's an article that I love to make available to you maybe after the event through the team around Steve Jobs and the incredible success Apple has had over the years. It's a $700 billion company now, the first in the US ever. And I think part of their success in marketing has been because of their very unique partnership with TBWA Child Day and for over 30 years. So they adopt a lot of the concept that I share with you today. And then, end of the day, it's a race, right? We talked about this early on. It's from survival to significance. It's a race. And I hope you're all ready. Nobody will make it. Remember the 25% at the beginning of the day? So the good news is the French have found a way to make good use of those who don't make it. So you can see me afterwards, and I'll tell you where to find those. And then finally, after all of these talk, you all can think, wow, it's all about equality in the relationship. Yeah, it is. But I think we can all agree, no matter where we sit at the end of the day, you know what? Agencies and clients, the clients will always be right. So thank you very much. And I'll take questions if there are any.